You're listening to an Ono Media podcast.
Good morning, and thanks for joining me for Rise in Crime, your morning caffeine hit all about crime. I'm Mama Jules, and today, let's start with a case suggestion by Caroline. When I checked out this case of a murdered woman in Chicago, my mouth fell open when I realized the alleged abuse this woman had suffered, both on the day of her murder and potentially the years leading up to her murder. Now, I'm the one calling it a murder. They haven't even identified it as that. But that's the word I chose to use. I will take that responsibility. Okay, we need to start with the beginning of what was, I think, fair to say, a rocky relationship with 36-year-old Caitlin Walsh Tracy and 46-year-old Adam Beckerink. Now, Adam's a wealthy tax lawyer there in Chicago, and he lives in an upscale South Loop apartment. I guess it's kind of a trendy area in Chicago. And Caitlin, well, she's a data analytics manager, and she had graduated from Michigan State University. Now, she followed her sister to Chicago after graduating, and according to Caitlin's parents, the two of them, Adam and Caitlin, they began dating in October of 2022. And that lasted almost a year, but difficulties in the relationship caused the two to separate for a few months, and it led to Caitlin filing a restraining order against Adam in October of 2023. Now, after the holidays of 2023, the two reconciled and they married in a private ceremony on April 8th of 2024. This ceremony was so private that Caitlin's parents, 69-year-old real estate developer Andrew Tracy and 65-year-old college professor Monica Tracy, well, they weren't invited to the wedding. Now, knowing that the two had a rocky relationship and that family wasn't really involved, let's take a look at that restraining order that occurred before their private nuptials. Now, this restraining order was one where Caitlin had specifically identified 3 instances of violence perpetrated on her by her then boyfriend, Adam, which required her to seek protection via law enforcement. All right, the first incident, alleged by Caitlin, was said to have taken place on July 11th of 2023. At that time, remember the two, again, are just boyfriend-girlfriend, and each has their own residence. Caitlin said in the afternoon on that July day that Adam stripped her naked and attacked her physically in her 3-story home that was located along Lake Michigan. Now, this home was closer to her parents and was purposely chosen by Caitlin, at least according to her parents, to create some distance between her and Adam. Caitlin allegedly escaped on foot from her home following that abuse on that day, but she was apparently picked back up by Adam and taken to a local hospital to receive treatment for an open wound on her head. Now, the second recorded incident allegedly took place on August 21st of 2023, so about a month later. This one happened at Adam's luxury condo. This altercation, according to Caitlin, started around 8 in the morning when the two began verbally arguing. The words became heated, and Caitlin said Adam called her a cheater, and then a whore, and a piece of shiz, and a liar, and then the B word. Okay, that's quite a tirade if it's true. She then said he physically assaulted her following the verbal abuse. All right, the third instance. This one was 1 month later, and this one was more public. Okay, it seems the two had a room at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Chicago's Magnificent Mile area. Who paid for the room and why the room was even being rented is unclear in this filing. But Caitlin said that at 5:30 p.m., Adam barged into the hotel room, again calling her multiple names. When the argument escalated, she said he sexually assaulted her. Now, the filing that listed these 3 individual incidences, it didn't go into specifics, like why did they even have that hotel room, or what kind of sexual assault occurred, or even how did she get her clothes back on before fleeing the first incident, or did she even get her clothes back on? Okay, there's details like that that are missing. But Caitlin did write in the bid for the restraining order that she believed if Adam knew she was at the courthouse filing that emergency order of protection, that he would try to stop her and then would potentially make her endure further abuse for making the alleged altercations public. Now, Caitlin's parents said the reason that Caitlin eventually withdrew that restraining order was because Adam, who remember is a lawyer, well, he allegedly threatened to file lawsuits against Caitlin for defamation and libel. Monica and Andrew, okay, remember, those are her parents, they said fear was the reason for Caitlin's compliance with whatever Adam requested. So all of this happened back in late summer of 2023. That's the alleged assaults, and then the breakup, and then the filing of the restraining order. But there's more. Before the two got back together after the holidays, the Berrien County Prosecutor's Office charged Adam in January of 2024 with 4 counts of larceny, interference with electronic communications, and with domestic violence against Caitlin. Okay, this part is crazy. Those charges, they're just hanging out there when the two decide to get married in that private ceremony in April of this year. But don't confuse the marriage with bliss, because it seems that law enforcement and Adam were bumping into each other more regularly. In August, more charges were added to the previous ones that I listed. Those charges included 2 counts of resisting and obstructing law enforcement, further charges about interference with electronic communications, and more counts of domestic violence. All right, I want to put a warning out there. We need to be careful here. It's Caitlin's parents who are sharing this message. It's not law enforcement, which means we don't know what caused those charges to be filed, and did those charges have significant legitimacy? So Adam has these charges hanging out there, and Caitlin has been living on and off with Adam in his luxury condo. Whatever the arrangement was with law enforcement at this point, it wasn't enough to protect Caitlin from whatever happened in late October of this year. On October 27th, police were called to the luxury condo units where Adam lived. Just minutes before that call, a resident of the condo had found a severed foot in the stairwell of the units. When that resident informed the building manager, he called the authorities, and he also kind of started looking around. That's when he found Caitlin's mangled, and to use the words of authorities, pulverized body of Caitlin. When the authorities called Monica and Andrew to inform them of their daughter's death, they told the couple that it appeared Caitlin had fallen 24 floors. That very night, police arrested Adam for the death of his wife. But then they released him 48 hours later. And Adam, nor anyone else, has been charged with the death of Caitlin. As of this recording, Chicago police are waiting on autopsy results, and they are telling the public they are conducting a death investigation. There's more to Adam's story, though. The police have released that Adam had called them the day before Caitlin's death. Now, apparently, he was reporting her missing. His story to law enforcement was that he hadn't been at the luxury condos. He said he'd been vacationing in Michigan, and that when he returned on October 25th, he realized that Caitlin wasn't there. He also said he hadn't seen her for about a month. So on October 26th, he reported her missing. And then on October 27th, she allegedly falls 24 stories at the luxury condo. And again, to use law enforcement's words, pulverized her body and severed her foot. Now, since her death, Monica and Andrew have launched legal proceedings to block Adam from controlling the remains of their daughter. In their court filings, they listed the alleged abuse that I mentioned previously, but they also wrote that Adam would call Caitlin sometimes 20 times a day. And they said in those calls, he would issue threats or verbal abuse. Now, Adam is telling a very different story. He is saying he loved his wife and that he was so concerned about her safety that he had reported her missing the day before her death. He also wanted to care for her remains, show some respect for her memory. His attorney, Todd Pugh, has defended him, stating, Caitlin was the love of Adam's life. Her family has not had contact with her for months. Adam wanted to honor her memory and include her family in arrangements, but their recent legal filings have made that impossible. Now, Monica says that's just false. She described in the paperwork that her daughter's final months were, quote, a nightmare, and she accused Adam of deliberately destroying her daughter's confidence and isolating Caitlin from everyone. On Friday, Caitlin's parents did win the court battle, and they now control the physical remains of their daughter. And for everyone, the fallout continues. In the wake of Caitlin's death, Adam's career has taken a massive tumble. Dwayne Morris, that's the law firm where Adam was listed as a partner, well, they have swiftly terminated his partnership once they found out about the legal trouble that Adam had been accused of. Remember those 2 felony cases that included the electronic communications and the domestic assaults? That law firm told the ABA Journal that Adam's wife's death was a shocking and tragic case. They claimed in their statement that they were unaware of the abuse allegations until the media began reporting them. They then clarified that Adam no longer is associated with the firm. And there's another weird twist to this story. I found 2 published obituaries for Caitlin, both pretty identical, but they're in different papers in different states. Guess who isn't mentioned at all? Yep, Adam. There's no reference to the marriage, no reference to the love of her life, like he called it. And you can see in the obituaries, he's completely not recognized. The obituaries do mention that those closest to her call her CT instead of Caitlin, and that she was a woman gifted with quick wit, an unmistakable laugh, and unfiltered honesty. I'll be watching for any news in this case. It feels so unfinished, more unfinished than some of the cases that I bring you, because I can't even logically predict where it's headed. I can't even logically predict if they're going to call this a murder. We'll just have to wait and see. All right, let's do a quick look at this story out of Georgia that has a Fannin County mother of 4 facing charges of child endangerment. But you're not going to believe what the authorities are calling child endangerment. Okay, this all happened on October 30th. When 41-year-old Brittany Patterson was arrested by the Fannin County Sheriff's Department for not closely monitoring her 11-year-old son. Okay, Soren is his name. That's the 11-year-old. And I want to stop here. You're going to see him reported as 10 in some news articles. I found it both ways. The most extensive news article listed him as 11. So I'm going with 11. So Soren, okay, he's the 11-year-old. Well, he was home alone when he decided to walk to, quote, town. He was going to the Dollar General store. Now, to get to the stores in town, his jaunt would be a little bit less than a mile. Someone near the Dollar General alerted law enforcement that Soren was in the town unaccompanied. And so law enforcement called Brittany. And guess what? Brittany wasn't all that concerned. She claimed she had left Soren alone at home to take her other son to the chiropractor. Okay, before she left, she said she gave Soren the choice of whether he wanted to stay home and finish his schoolwork or go with her and his brother to the doctor. She told NBC News that the stretch of road that Soren was walking was not dangerous at all. She said she wasn't terrified for his safety. Plus, she wasn't super concerned when she left Soren home because her husband was somewhere on the 16-acre property. After speaking with Brittany, deputies placed Soren in the squad car and drove him home. Now, you would think maybe the story would be over at this point, with deputies giving Brittany a strong warning and also telling Soren not to leave his home again like that. But that's not how this played out. Police showed up and arrested her later that evening, cuffing her in front of her children and charging her with child endangerment. Brittany's attorney has explained that this situation might be about the adults getting the wrong idea here. Let's dissect everything that happened. The police report references that a woman says Soren was walking to a gas station and then to the post office. She got concerned. She thought maybe he had possibly been abandoned. So she walked up to Soren and asked him his name and what he was doing. Soren didn't really answer her, apparently, and instead he just went, never mind, and he disappeared behind the fire station. So the woman called the sheriff's office, and when the deputy responded and saw Soren walking alone, that deputy, it's a female, she recorded that she felt Soren was confused about what was going on. Now, Soren initially declined the offer for the ride from the female deputy, and after they spoke a little bit more, Soren allegedly told the deputy where his home was and that his grandfather was there. Now, the Huffington Post reviewed the body cam footage of the event, and it does appear the boy is a little bit upset. Brittany's lawyer says that is because the boy was interpreting that he had done something wrong. He was riding in the back of a squad car, and he was feeling like he might be in trouble. Well, the deputy did record in the police report that Brittany was not surprised, nor did she show extreme concern that her son had walked to town. Brittany says she can explain that. She told the Huffington Post that she wasn't panicking and that she wasn't hysterical because her son clearly knows the way to town and the way back home. She wasn't concerned he was going to get lost, and she wasn't concerned he would go missing in their rural area. Well, the police report clarifies that Brittany hadn't seen her son for about an hour when she received the call from the deputy. The police report states that Brittany said her son could be defiant and that she assumed he was actually on their 16-acre property, just maybe a little bit deeper in the wooded area. She allegedly said Soren would go into the wooded area when he wanted to clear his head. The report also says that Brittany told the deputy that she was at her wit's end with the boy. Now, when the deputy dropped Soren off, she walked around the inside of the home and she received confirmation from Soren's grandfather that he would watch over the boy. When deputies returned a couple of hours later, Brittany was on the phone with a client. As soon as she came to the door, deputies said they would be arresting her, and they placed her in handcuffs pretty quickly. She explained to the deputies that she was doing her best in free-range parenting. Now, Brittany's mother was there during the arrest and possibly prior to the arrest. It's not really clarified here. And she told deputies that Brittany had thought about sending Soren to live with his father in Montana for a brief time. Their arrest report also says that Brittany's mother told deputies that Soren is sad often and that he won't eat sometimes. Well, following the arrest, Brittany told the Huffington Post that she didn't doubt that her mother told the deputies that her son was struggling. She said that in reality, her son is a typical 11-year-old boy who has an independent streak, and she didn't like that he was being painted as a kid with some kind of issue. Brittany's attorney says the charge and arrest is overreaching, and he maintains that Brittany didn't do anything that amounted to a criminal offense. In fact, he cited Georgia law that states children ages 9 to 12 can be left alone for up to 2 hours. And remember, she had been away from Soren for about an hour when he was being picked up by deputies. Okay, you might feel strongly one way or another about this case, but I'm giving you what has been stated by the attorney and by Brittany and also by law enforcement. So just take in all of the bits of information here. After Brittany was arrested, she was taken to jail. She was forced to change out of her clothes and she was placed in county clothing. She was then fingerprinted and her mugshot was taken. When she was bailed out, she said she was in complete disbelief about what she had just gone through. The next day, an agent from the Division of Family and Children's Services showed up at Brittany's home and interviewed her children. Brittany said she was asked to sign a safety plan at that time, which would have required her to download a tracking app and also place it on Soren's phone. And then she would also be required to delegate a safety person. Okay, that's their words for somebody who would watch over Soren, like a babysitter. Someone who would be there if she was not at the house. Brittany decided not to sign it, even though she was not sure what happens to her now. She just chose not to sign it, not knowing what the future looks like. She told the Huffington Post that she felt like it was more of a risk for her to sign it without any guarantee of what happens moving forward. And apparently, the district attorney told Brittany's lawyer that if she would have signed the agreement, that all charges would have been dropped. Okay, as of this recording, the case isn't settled. The charges against Brittany still stand, and she has not decided to sign the agreement. Her attorney said the following: "Can we get that kind of attention to real crimes? I mean, where people are being assaulted, bad things are happening, people are being drugged, whatever. Are you with me here? Yeah, resources are being misplaced, and that's part of the questioning of what's going on." Well, Brittany could face up to 1 year in jail if she is convicted of the charges. I know there are people who have feelings about this case. Let me know what you think on the YouTube channel or in the social media comments section, and maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion. And let's now look at another case suggestion from Kathleen. This one is also about endangering a child, but in a totally different way. 31-year-old Michaela Lomax, 26-year-old Marissa Johnson, and 21-year-old Morgan Donahue have all been charged by the Smyrna Police Department in Delaware with child endangerment. The three women work at an elementary school, and they are being accused of abusing children in the special needs program of that school. These arrests happened last week, but it all stems from an investigation that was started back in February because video had shown the three women throwing objects at the special needs students and then calling them names and yelling at them. There's more though, you guys. Two of the women, Marissa and Morgan, well, they're being accused of feeding Takis. Okay, those are those ultra hot Cheeto-like chips. My kids love them. Okay, they've been accused of taking those Takis and dipping them in hot sauce and then forcing one of the special needs students to eat them. And they are doing this knowing that this particular student struggles with digestive issues. All right, the other woman, Michaela, she's the oldest one. Well, she's accused of using a water bottle to spray students in the face as a form of discipline. She also allegedly hit a student. Okay, there's been fallout. Thank goodness. Those employees may, yes, I said may, no longer work for the Smyrna School District, and the district released a statement on November 6th saying they are completely cooperating with law enforcement. Right, the statement is vague about who is still employed, but it does clarify that none of the women work directly with students anymore. The district stood behind the policy that employees have privacy rights with regard to whether someone still works there, and that they're only required to supply that information via reports to the Department of Education. So, Michaela is accused of child abuse in the third degree, offensive touching, and 9 counts of endangering the welfare of a child. She's being held under a $12,000 unsecured bond with no contact orders with those students. Marissa, she's charged with 10 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, and she's being held on a $10,000 bond, while Morgan is facing 1 count of endangering the welfare of a child with a $500 bond. Clearly, there was a tiered system here where one was being far more abusive than the other. Now, a preliminary hearing was scheduled for the women last Friday, but I couldn't find any reporting about how that hearing turned out. I would note that it seems Michaela was the ringleader of this trio, and that's why her charges are a little more intense. I'll kind of watch, mostly I'm going to be watching this case to see if it's ever reported where these women are working. In my opinion, they have no place in the school system if they are found guilty. And finally today, this shiver-inducing story out of Peru that has me remembering the story out of Canada where the man was caught smuggling snakes into the United States by taping a bag of snakes to his inner thigh. Well, it happened again, you guys, except this time it isn't snakes. It's tarantulas. Security officials at Lima's Jorge Chavez International Airport, well, they were looking at a man trying to go through security, and things just weren't adding up with how the man looked. His stomach was kind of misshapen and swollen, and then other parts of his body kind of appeared lumpy. When they pulled the 28-year-old Korean man out of the security line and asked him to lift up his shirt, security officials found 2 belts wrapped around the man. Attached to the belts were camouflaged bags and packages that contained tarantulas and bugs. But it wasn't just 1 or 2 spiders. The Wildlife Service tallied up the critters, And this man had 35 adult tarantulas, 285 juvenile tarantulas, 100 centipedes, and 9 bullet ants. And all of them were attached to his body. Ugh. Okay, the ick factor is just off the charts right now. So let's talk about these adult tarantulas. 35 of them, and they're the size of my hand. Each adult tarantula was inside of its own container that was attached to the belt. The juvenile tarantulas, well, they were squished into these small tubes, and that was how they were contained and then attached to the belts or to his legs. All of these creatures are native to Peru, and the tarantulas are on the endangered species list. And it's big money, apparently, because they're an endangered species. Walter Silva, who is a wildlife specialist, well, he told People magazine that these illegally extracted bugs and spiders are part of a global trade in which wildlife is smuggled and sold for high prices, generating millions of dollars. The Christmas season is also the peak time for selling the spiders and bugs because the smugglers can fetch higher prices. Okay, people are giving tarantulas for Christmas gifts. It gets weirder. Okay, I feel like there has to be a corner of TikTok that isn't tapped into here because right now, my entire feed is people hawking products claiming it's the hottest gift for your toddler or for your husband for Christmas. Okay, I guess there's got to be a portion of a tarantula can be your hottest gift for your significant other. I don't know. Now, the creatures, they were moved to a safe location and they're going to hopefully be successfully relocated into the Peruvian rainforest. And that 28-year-old guy, the Korean, well, he was arrested, but not much info is being shared about him since the arrest opened up an extended investigation into the smuggling ring. So they're keeping everything pretty hush-hush. I truly apologize for ending with this story that might have left some of you with the heebie-jeebies. Okay, let's get to some of the comments that were submitted on about last week's episodes by listeners. And several of you had issues with the non-emergency line calls that were made in the death of Jackson Cradle. Okay, remember, this is the kid who was found dead in the middle of the road by what was reported as a dispatcher and an EMT or an ambulance worker, and they were off duty, and they called the non-emergency line, and they didn't call 911, and I played the 3 phone calls. All right, here's what you guys said. Let's see. The Legend X 1984. Okay, they said, these have to be the worst dispatchers I've ever heard of. It's like they only do it for the cash. No urgency about the situation at all. And then Mama Bear Shores followed that up with this. Listen, I live in Illinois. It's full of corruption, right to the lowest level of government and police. I'm currently fighting the city of Braidwood for what they did to me through the AG office. In a recorded city meeting, I was told I couldn't talk at a city meeting when I came up to the city meeting to talk about our city administrator. I feel like there's a huge story behind all of this, Mama Bear Shores. And I think that a lot of people are feeling that way you're feeling, that maybe there's some government corruption here. I'd also be interested to know what you think about the Chicago case that I brought you today. And then how about this one from Bibby Lou 99? Well, they had a point by saying that if there's brain matter, why do we need to do CPR? I totally get that. But why not, cover your bases? Maybe at least call EMS just to make it look legit and possibly stick around instead of going home as soon as the deputy arrives. I don't know. It just kind of reeked, all of it. And then let's go to this one. Valeria MQ3QN. That person said that the dispatchers and city employees were giving the, quote, I'm off the clock, that ain't my job. They were giving those kind of vibes. And then they said, it's literally your job to save lives. So many of you felt exactly the same way. And then many of you were asking about my little dog that was sitting next to me. Let me grab her right now. All right, her name is Q. She's about 16 years old. You can probably see how gray she is. And if you follow the other Oh No Media podcasts, Peyton was probably about 13 or 14 when we rescued her. She was just a pup then, but she's getting really old at 16. And last week was kind of a bad week for her. She was having a bad day. She just wanted to be near me. So I tried to put her on the desk here. Usually she's wrapped up in a blanket off camera. But she was kind of edgy last week. So I put her up next to me. She lasted about half the episode, but then she wanted to go back to her soft little bed. So I moved her off of camera. She's just a cute little pup, and she's my good little girl. I love her so much. All right, you guys, that's your Thursday episode of Rise in Crime. Thank you so much. I'm loving the comments. I love how interactive it's been. So please keep leaving me a comment on either the social media channels or on the YouTube channel. And I've also received more 5-star reviews. I'll ask for more. It helps the podcast grow. I truly appreciate it. And you can like and follow us on all of our social media channels and on YouTube accounts at Oh No Media. That's Rise in Crime, Murder with My Husband, and Into the Dark. And you can join me again on Monday for more morning crime news. I'm Mama Jules, and keep safe out there.